Kenyans do not choose bad leaders. Bad bad leaders are chosen, handpicked for us and imposed on us by their colonial masters. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and Mr. Comrade, this is Kenya Revolutionary for another video coming at you. Please, before I get started, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as quick as you can. Do it so quick that your finger might even break. But of course, if you have subscribed, just go ahead and like the video, comment, share, and all that good stuff. Let's get started. I often draw parallels with the recently concluded elections in South Africa. We see the same play by the colonial masters. I had the discussion in another platform where I was, my antagonist was arguing that we Kenyans always choose the wrong leaders. And I was in disagreement with him because I mentioned the fact that the electoral process is usually the democratic process, that is, our democracy is subverted, or the process of us choosing our leaders, that process is always subverted by external factors, external powers, the colonial masters through their stooges. And they do it in a very, very familiar way. Now, if you look at the 2007 elections, and I'll be brief, I won't be here for long, but I want to get into this so quickly. If you look at the 2007 election, 2017, and even 2013, okay, where two factors played into the whole rigging phase, okay? The voting machines that were being used, okay, and the lack of the so-called agents, whether it's the party's agents or the IEBC agents, either being bribed or killed or compromised, okay? Well, it's the same thing, but majorly it's either they get killed or they get compromised to, rig for a certain political candidate or presidential candidate or MP or whatever the case, whatever the position they're running for. Now, if you look at the South African case, I know if you've been following closely, there's a lot of controversy because there's a massive cases of rigging that have happened. Okay, the Umkhonto that is being led by Zuma was actually doing well, but something familiar happened. There was reports of ballot papers being lost and the machines actually stalling. And I mentioned this in my one of my live. There's a book that was written by Greg Palast, somebody who has been following elections for a long time, and especially this company that was responsible in the Kenyan elections and also in the US elections. That company is notoriously known for, kind of manipulating the voting machines to tabulate the counting of the votes in favor of a certain candidate, okay? Yes, the Kenyan case, it's not purely electronic. We do that paper ballots, okay? But we use the servers and the machines just to a backup system, okay? Surprise, surprise. Guess who's calling for a hand recount? It's Umkhonto led by Zuma, while everyone else, the DA, who are main suspects in this, are telling us they want to move on and they want to form a coalition government with ANC and other small parties like EFF. I've been saying here that Julius Malema is not a revolutionary as people might think. But let me bring you back to the Kenyan context, because this channel is all about Kenyan politics, or should I say Kenyan politics. Now, in the Kenyan context, I've said this, and I will wrap up with this because I don't want to stay here for long. This is the case. I know a lot of people, now you've seen what's going on with the finance bill. It's been rejected. In fact, there was a guy who was protesting when there was, Njuguna, the treasury guy, was posing for a photo opportunity, whatever. And we see this whole barrage. People are exposing the phone numbers of MPs before the vote, and they're calling their MPs, texting them, telling them, hey, we don't want this finance bill, which is a good step. I'm so proud of Kenyans for doing that. But what I'm trying to say is this: come 2027, Ruto will not go anywhere, not because that he will have the votes, but simply because the die has been cast. The familiar faces will come in to make sure that Ruto maintains power. Let me explain myself. And this is why I started by highlighting that case in South Africa, okay? Because the idea is to make sure that no one reaches that 50+1 threshold that requires that the Constitution stipulates. So what they'll do is, if you look at if you do the math here, if the Mount Kenya people who are being siphoned off from the Kenya Kwanza coalition, okay, thanks to Uhuru Kenyatta, who's working behind the scenes to do that through his minions. If you take out that, Mount Kenya alone cannot win by themselves. They have to find another coalition, okay, another tribal group. Let's not kid ourselves. In Kenya, people vote along tribal lines. So Kenya Kwanza will be left with mainly lawyers, which are Western Province, and the Kalenjins, okay, and maybe a few people from Coast and a few people from Nyanza. That's not enough to make the 50+1. Same thing with Mount Kenya, whether it's Kalonzo who will, create a coalition with Gachagua or whoever it is, they're probably not going to make that 50+1 threshold, okay? So what will happen is this: they'll probably negotiate and come together, and we'll have a government of national unity, something that's similar to what's happening in South Africa. That right now, as we speak, South Africans, the major parties are kind of negotiating a government of national unity, a coalition government, where these small parties will team up with the big parties, and they can make government, and they'll negotiate on position where somebody will take the foreign, whatever, this position, that position, the treasury, or all that good stuff. You understand what I'm talking about. Something akin to the, guess what? Kofi Annan Accord. Remember, that is what the Azimio folks were calling for when the first Mandamano was about to start. They were fighting for something akin to the Kofi Annan Accord, which is a government of national unity. I mentioned this to say this, that this is a trick that's been used by the Western governments, colonial powers, to keep their people in place. Okay, they maintain power that way because you saw, and you shouldn't be surprised why these guys already have something in place called the BBI or the NARCO report, which is there. They'll be using that, okay, as a means of they call it inclusivity, but it only includes people from other small parties to join in the big table. But the real power will be wielded by the colonial puppets, the Ruto government, which will still report to their masters from Washington, D.C. and Birmingham Palace, okay? But let me just mention this. I'm very happy with this initiative for whoever came up with this idea of calling this MPs making their voices known. The only thing I want to stress as I finish, again, I said I don't want to stay here long, is this. Kenyans, let's get ready. In 2027, there will be a coalition government, a government of national unity, okay, where Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, and anything between will negotiate for power, and they will give cheos to the tribal chieftains or the bigwigs of each party coalition to satisfy them, and they will kind of quell the complaints by their supporters and they'll do so by telling us that they're doing so we can have peace. This is something that in the mix, because Ruto cannot survive 2027 elections given the kind of punitive tax policies that he is proposing or trying to push towards Kenyans. You heard him today. He said that let's pass this finance bill so we can have electricity. I mean, how offensive is that? But anyway, the point is, as I wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, friends, and comrades, is that in 2027, let's prepare for a coalition government. Now, for us, Patriotic Kenya, we should reject this in its entirety. We should have someone who will be advocating for our interest as Kenyans, not this coalition government which will be reporting to the colonial masters. I'll keep it here, ladies and gentlemen. Just go ahead. As again, I remind you again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. I'll talk to you again maybe later. Peace and blessing.